Welcome into another live episode of Bully Ball. Brandon Aiyuk said what on social media? Who actually showed up? And are the 49ers relying too big and heavy on their rookies in 2025? Stick around for all that and more after this. I'm Jason Aponte. That's Steph Sanchez. This is the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, the only podcast that fell asleep during a Unsolved Mysteries marathon to be jolted awake by that crazy, scary theme song. Other than that, Steph, I'm doing good. How's your day?
What the hell, man? I'm great, but on Unsolved Mysteries, that's the one with William Shatner, right?
No, Robert Stack.
Oh, okay.
Jesus.
It's the one with William Shatner.
Not that. Star Trek?
No. Okay, whatever.
But yeah, again, older show, fine. We don't have to get into that. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat and everything as well, too. Before we get into what you're here to talk about, I've got some really good news and I've got some really horrible news. The good news is Trent Williams reported today at OTAs, and it sounds like he is going to be ready to go and rolling. The bad news is Trent Taylor is on IR and the season's over now. Sorry, guys. It's just not the way that I make things up, but June 3rd, Trent Taylor being on IR, devastating blow. No way the 49ers will be able to recover from that. Right, Steph?
They took the wrong Trent. I'm just kidding. We traded one Trent for the other. In all seriousness, I'm not mad at it. We needed Trent Williams back, and now everyone can stop panicking about it, and we can get back to the mission at hand.
Absolutely. All right. This is it. Let's get into it. Everybody's here for it. Brandon Aiyuk posting on his IG stories. He posted a clip of Terrell Owens working out it was a picture of Terrell Owens working out in the driveway. If you guys don't know that story, Terrell Owens during that time with the Eagles got into a little bit of a spat with Andy Reid. It was about his contract. It was about his tights, whatever. T.O. put on the show, fine. Brandon Aiyuk posts this, and naturally 49ers Twitter loses this mind. I am going to be completely upfront and say I couldn't care less about any of this, and I don't care about anything other than what his recovery timeline is, how he's going to look playing. But apparently this is annoying people, Steph, and we have to talk about it.
Yeah, and he followed up that story with another story that read, y'all cry baby ass divas be killing the vibes on IG, Instagram. Shaking my head, it got to be an age limit on hating. If you're 30 years or older, just post your kids and STFU. He kind of cooked on that one, Jay, because there are a lot of people who hate for no reason. It doesn't matter what Brandon Aiyuk posts or if you see anything about Brandon Aiyuk that others post, it will have grown men, hating in the comments for no reason. And it's baffling to me because we've gotten to the point with Aiyuk where fans of this team are hating on a player on this team. And it's like, shouldn't we be rooting for him to do well? And I get it. There's some frustration from the way that the contract negotiations went down. The frustration mounted when, he barely played last year as well due to his injury. But at some point, man, we just got to move the hell on and let this man live.
Look, man, just let me know how the knee's feeling. Let me know how you're going to be doing during training camp. I don't care, man. Look, there's people with preconceived notions and everything, and the people that wanted him traded will see a post like this and say, oh my God, you have to trade him. Yeah, for a Terrell Owens post. Yeah, let's trade somebody now. I don't think you guys really know what drama really is. And you know how I can say that? My second favorite wide receiver of all time is Terrell Owens. And trust me, I don't give a shit. I really don't care. And I never cared, even when T.O. was acting however it was. But this just feels like there's a boring time right now. Right now, things are really slow, and we don't have as many OTA clips, which, by the way, those hit the timeline, and I was like, give me more. But it's fine, man. I'm not worried about it at all. Again, tell me how the knee feels. What are you going to look like during the season? And the other thing is if, God forbid, medically he's not where he's supposed to be, It'll have nothing to do with what he's posted on social media. Nothing at all. Because if he didn't say anything and then he's not medically cleared, the people that were mad at him are going to be mad at him for taking all the money and whatever. It's no real win situation. But again, we're just talking about it because people are interested and people seem to care. I personally do not care, and I couldn't care less when it comes down to what players post on their Instagram or whatever it is, man. He's a kid too, so like whatever. I don't care.
Honestly, I mean, if there's some drama going on still with 49ers and him, like they can handle that on their own as well. I also don't care. Those are grown men. So, I do wish he would keep it off social media if that is in fact the case. But I mean, whatever, man. I'm with you, Jay. I don't really care.
Well, I'll say this. It was a little too smooth of an offseason. Things were going a little too...
There had to be something.
There had to be one ripple. This isn't a wave. It's a ripple. This isn't a wave, right? It's just a ripple. Like, I don't care. And by the way, and I see Papa Jay's comment, I'm over 30 and I took offense to that. But what about the people that are over 30 that don't have kids? I don't get that part. Just because there's plenty of people that are over 30 that don't have kids.
It's like, I'm over 30 and I don't have kids. I got time to hate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't have kids, then yeah, I'm absolutely gonna be going crazy in the comments or whatever. But look, it doesn't really matter. But we do have to talk about it because people are interested in that. Having said that, it is really important to see Trent Williams back because it was turning into a little bit of where's Waldo, right? Hey, he was in the building. Hey, he's not in the building. Today, confirmed by Vic Taffer of The Athletic, Trent Williams is in the building. Oh man, I'd like to file a "we're back" claim to the "we're back" department, Steph.
That's a good one. And yeah, I think let's focus on the good vibes. There's been a lot of good vibes this offseason to go around, and Trent Williams being back in the building definitely adds on to that. I was starting to get a little nervous. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. I was trying to just put it off and be like, Kyle told us he showed up at the early going of the offseason. That should be good enough. But then there were like 2 retirements that happened just this week, and I'm like, oh no. Is there a chance that Trent Williams could retire this late in the game? I mean, certainly, we've seen it happen. It's happened this week, like I said. But Trent's in the building, so that's a big indication he's ready and good to go, just like we thought he would be. And that's a good sign for the offensive line. They definitely need him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wrote an article today about ranking the offensive line. And I know offensive line is a sore subject with 49ers fans because there's a large section of fans that believe that the 49ers offensive line is the worst in the history of football. And there's others that are, wanting improvement, rightfully so. And there's others that are able to understand where they are. But obviously, without Trent Williams, this thing goes a completely different way. So obviously it's good to have him back. And then we're talking about getting back Christian McCaffrey, who, you weren't here for the last episode, Steph, and you left me with Rob. Thanks a lot. Don't ever do that again. But we made our prediction. Remember last year, best shape of his life, right? Who's going to declare it?
Yeah.
I said Christian McCaffrey. Sure enough, once Kyle Shanahan gets something put, you guys are jerks. Once Kyle Shanahan gets a microphone put in his face, he's as healthy as can be. And I was like, there it is. That was probably the easiest one to look at.
That one we can interpret any kind of way because that's very much a Shanahan-ism. Because I feel like he's as healthy as he can mean so many things as well.
Oh, don't do this stuff.
He's as healthy as he possibly can be. Like, he can't be any more healthier right now. I don't know. No. I didn't want to go down that route. But, no, I feel good about where McCaffrey's at for what it's worth. I feel good. I think he looks good. In case anyone was wondering how I feel about that. But, yeah, I'm just excited.
Yeah, so look, again, it's right now, everything Kittle, Warner, Williams, McCaffrey, Aiyuk, now we've got to figure out. I think that's the one that everybody's kind of anxious about. I wanted to get your thoughts real quick about Ricky Pearsall and what's going on in this offseason. Now, obviously, the hamstring injury says he'll be out until camp. It's a bit of a bummer, but it's not something that's considered, very serious, and it'll be till camp. But, man, if there was ever a time, right, for Ricky Pearsall to really get going and start moving, right now it would have been that time, right? Coming off of the offseason he just had, and you're starting right back the same way. I don't know. That one kind of put a little damper on, all the good vibes from OTAs and mini camp that are coming up and all that stuff.
Yeah, it definitely did. And, we're depending on Ricky Pearsall to build off of the rookie season that he had, even though it wasn't even a full season, right? So along with that, like, I think this offseason is huge for him. The fact that Brandon Aiyuk, is going to be missing the first bit of the season as well. Like, Ricky Pearsall has to be ready out the gate, right? To help this offense. And it's early in the offseason, so I don't want to freak out about it too much, but we know how hamstrings can be, and those can turn up and rear their ugly heads at different points. And I have to assume, I don't think this has officially been said, but I'm assuming it's the same hamstring he's dealt with before. Again, that's just an assumption on my part. But as long as he's back for training camp and he can hit the ground running, then I'm going to feel good about what he can put together if he can stay healthy from that point on. Because what I saw from him to end the season, once he was healthy, once he was out there, he was stacking his weeks and he was getting better week in and week out. So there's still that opportunity for him to build upon that year one that he had and, have a solid season and be able to contribute and be a growing option on this team for this offense. It is a bummer. I'm, a little worried about it, I guess, long-term, I would say, but, for now, just hoping he gets that worked out. It sounds like, based on what Kyle Shanahan said, that he'd probably be ready by minicamp, but there's kind of no point in having him participating in minicamp. So it's not like a long-term like hamstring injury, right? It doesn't seem like it's like a grade 2 or anything like that. I'm not a doctor, but certainly that is some optimism that he'll be ready for training camp, and they're just simply not trying to risk that injury getting worse by putting him out there in minicamp, even though he probably will be ready by then.
And if you want to spit it into a positive, then Jacob Cowing can step into these reps and by all accounts has, gained weight and looks better and and is if you look at KP's tweet about him talking to his trainer about how he's ready to make noise, if you want to spin this into a positive, this is it, right? Because I still believe in Jacob Cowing. I still think he's a hell of a route runner. I still think that he's being miscast as just this guy who can run fast. He just happens to be the fastest receiver, last year in the roster. Let's see what Jordan Watkins is, because I think he's probably the fastest. But right now, like, this is Jacob Cowing's time. And that's pretty exciting to allow him to get rolling, because I really am excited for the young man, even though, he was relegated to just punt return and kick return duties last season.
Did you look at your watch when you said that it's Jacob Cowing's time? Did I see that correctly?
I didn't mean to. I got a text message, but I just was,
He said it's Jacob Cowing's time.
I would have went like this.
He said it is time. But
this
yeah,
Apple Watch is it tells you when you need to stand up. I don't want to stand up. I'm laying down. Like leave me alone. Like I'm already done working.
You got to breathe once an hour,
right?
Apparently, but no, Jacob Cowing. I think based on what others have said about him so far, it sounds like he's ready to take on an expanded role. So you're right. Every injury is an opportunity for someone else, or at least it should be, right? So that could very well be Jacob Cowing. I think we're all hoping for that. George Kittle said he visibly has put on a lot of weight. I think that's a good sign, as long as it doesn't hinder his speed too much. But like you said, he's not just a speed guy, right? Like, he's got the route running down as well. So hopefully he finds himself more opportunities on the field this year, because the 49ers, that wide receiver room, they got bodies, but it's like, it's a lot of question marks. I don't know who's really standing out. I mean, we know Juwan Jennings could take on an expanded role and he could be very reliable for this team. He has connection with Brock Purdy, but Demarcus Robinson, is he going to be suspended? Like, Jordan Watkins, is he going to meet the doghouse in his rookie year? I have a lot of questions. Could Ricky Pearsall stay healthy for a full year? Could Jacob Cowing get out of the doghouse finally. So bodies, a lot of bodies is crowded in there, but I need someone to step up. So hopefully, Pearsall and Cowing could be that this year.
Absolutely. 15 minutes into this episode, guys. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, all of that. Every single like helps out with the algorithm and everything as well. I wanted to pivot a little bit to another injury that we found out in training camp, which is Jair Brown's ankle injury, which is going to put him out for training camp. Now, let's be clear. Jair Brown has an uphill battle to see the field at this point. It felt like Malik Mustafa is clearly going to be the guy, but now we don't know what's going on with his ACL injury. Now we have this Jair Brown thing where he said, hey, listen, if Malik has to miss some games, he can step in and play. But I wonder if the 49ers will look into the safety position and address the safety position following. And we haven't even really talked about, you and I haven't talked about the trade with the Eagles and Bryce Huff, and we'll get into that. But the safety position becomes a little bit more shaky right now at this point. Listen, Jason Pinnock and Richie Grant, they are no doubt NFL football players. That's one thing I can say about them. They've played football in the NFL. I will say that. I'm just trying to be better and nice, right? I don't want to be, I'm not trying to, sweeping statements. I want to keep it to the facts. The both of them are NFL football players, and they play safety. Is that good? Okay.
It's fact.
It is. But the 49ers need to address this, and it's either Justin Simmons or Julian Blackmon. Julian Blackmon probably feels like the more likely choice based on he played in Indianapolis with Gus Bradley. Justin Simmons feels like it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But do you think the 49ers do need to add somebody in this safety room? Although Marcus Siegel is somebody that they drafted. The names Jason Pinnock and Richie Grant don't make me warm and fuzzy on the inside.
They don't move you, Jay? They don't
move
move you? Okay. Yeah.
Unmoved. Immovable.
On Marcus Siegel, like, he hasn't even begun practicing yet. We haven't seen him on the field yet. According to Nick Wagner, he's dealing with a sports hernia, right? So it may be some time before he actually gets on the field. So you got 3 guys, including a rookie, who has not who's dealing with injuries right now. And so, yes, Richie Grant, Jason Pinnock being your top 2, definitely not going to be moving anybody at this point in time. But it's OTAs, so there's no reason for the 49ers to rush on this. But, Jay, I would like to see the 49ers add someone else, especially if Jair Brown is still, coming back from whatever he's dealing with. If they sign someone before training camp, I think that'd be a good time for them to do it. And that's usually when they try to sign some guys just ahead of that. And then veteran players look to sign on with some teams around that time too. A lot of these guys, it's not so much that teams aren't interested in them right now. They're just kind of hanging back and waiting for the right opportunity. And also they don't want to deal with all this other OTAs and minicamp stuff most of the time. So they just want to come in for training camp. So that would be a good time. And I think the 49ers have another move in them, honestly. Like they definitely got the cap for it. We know that. And, the Bryce Huff move tells me that they know that there's still some spots that are in need of more depth and just complementary roles that need to be filled on this team, in particular on the defensive side. Safety is one of those spots. I would say linebacker, maybe another one of those spots where, adding another body could certainly help increase the competition and in turn, Mosley. You could, yeah, exactly. So looking at all these connections that, Saleh has, and even, Brett Boyer, like all the connections that he has and the guys that he's brought in, guys that he's had connections with in the past. I think that's something that they're looking at. And that's just an easy way to not just bring in someone, but someone that is going to have a decent high floor on your team right off the bat, just because they're already familiar with your scheme and your system. So I think that could go a long way. And that's what the 49ers are banking on. And it's low risk, high reward type of moves. So that's what the 49ers should be focused on from here to training camp if they're looking to add anyone. But those are definitely the 2 positions I'm looking at for the 49ers to address next if they do.
Yeah, and I think, again, the Bryce Huff move, obviously, we can get into that now, but it, like you said, I love the way you put it, right? Everyone's talking defensive line. It's the role. They didn't have a pass rush specialist. And, you and I have talked and we said, hey, Zadarius Smith or Von Miller, or like that felt like one of those guys that just was going to be around because they didn't want to go to training camp. Well, the 49ers make a move for somebody who is familiar with the scheme and is younger and has far more upside, right? And I think that one kind of like, think about how badly many people wanted Joey Bosa. But if I would have known that Bryce Huff was an option next to Joey Bosa, I would have taken Bryce Huff 10 out of 10 times based on age, based on availability, based on everything. But everyone's kind of wondering, Steph, about why didn't it work in Philly with Bryce Huff and why 49er fans should be excited. So the first thing that jumps out to you is Vic Fangio's scheme. And 49er fans, this shouldn't be explained to the lifers and the hardcore guys. 3-4 is not something that he's meant to do. You don't need him standing up. He needs a hand in the ground, and he needs to get off and get that bend and be around and blow past guys. That's not his game. To be fair, what you're looking at was a guy who fell out of favor for the rotation, but his pressure numbers and his pressure rate was still there, even in the limited snaps that he had. So I don't want that to go by the wayside. Obviously, it's not what it was with the Jets and obviously with Robert Saleh, but that is just a scheme mistake. For as much as you love people love Howie Roseman, that was a mistake on his part. Thinking that he could bring in Bryce Huff and use him in a Vic Fangio offense just was never destined to work. And that's fine. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. Just means that scheme fits, personnel, all of that stuff is dictated. But Vic Fangio, our old buddy, the DC for the Eagles, he talked a little bit about what was going on with Bryce Huff and why he thinks he'll be able to succeed. I think Rob has the clip right now, actually.
One thing is he was getting better. And when he hurt his hand, he tried to play with it a couple weeks. It wasn't going good because he was reluctant to use his hand. And then when they operated on it, he had to play with a big cast on his hand, which basically rendered his hand useless and then rendered your arm useless because you can't use your hand. That really, had an effect on him. And, we just come out of draft season, and first thing you see when they put a guy's name up on the board, his hand size, his arm length, well, he lost all that. And in that, while he was out, Nolan got more snaps, Jalix got more snaps, and things evolved. But I think he'll do fine in San Francisco.
What the hell is Fangio running over there? Steph, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense what he has to say about the wrist injury, definitely hindering him and what he's able to do. Also, Brandon Graham, his teammate with Philadelphia as well, kind of gave similar thoughts about how the scheme maybe wasn't the best fit for him, right, in Philadelphia. So, I mean, we got to take all of that into account. There's some players in this league that can offer you scheme versatility because they're just so talented. Right. And I think that's why some people forget that there are many other players in the league that are not. They have to be in specific schemes. And I think because of such a strong season that, Huff had in that 2023 year, I think Philadelphia was banking on Huff being that type of player who could be scheme versatile, right? And after all, he's not drafted free agent, right? He was back in 2020. So he has some limitations. And that's okay. Like there's one thing that he's very, very good at, and that is rushing the passer. Shame in that. That's the exact role he's going to have with this team and with Robert Saleh. And so I think Saleh's already proven he knows how to use him. And I think that's the role that we're going to see him in. And it's going to be in the scheme that fits him best, the wide 9, where he can just, shoot off the ball. And he has that quick get off. Like in that 2023 season, his get off was the 6th fastest among defensive linemen. So the 49ers were talking about roll, right? They got their speed rush guy. And that's going to go a long way. I wouldn't imagine that he's going to be starting for the 49ers. Like
he won't be in on base downs.
Exactly. So, but when I think some fans, when you hear like, oh wow, like I hear this guy's really good, like he's probably going to start, right? No, like let's set that expectation now that he's coming in for a specific role and he's going to have a big impact in that role. So he's going to be on those situational pass rushing downs, probably see Michael Williams. That's another thing, right? Like Bryce Huff coming in doesn't hurt Michael Williams
At all.
At all as a rookie. Like Michael is going to be the guy on those base downs. And then probably I could imagine he's going to be rushing in from the inside, when Bryce Huff comes in. So you're able to have them all 3 downs potentially. And so, yeah, I think having a speed rush guy opposite Bosa, we've seen that have a lot of success in this defense. And the other thing, Jay, is this gives Saleh versatility to have the different packages on certain down and distances. That was when this defensive line was the best, right? Like when they had all the Alpha, the Bravo, the NASCAR package and all that. You're able to keep guys fresh, and then the offenses don't really know what's coming, right? It can go any which way. So I think that's something that's going to be a welcome change once again for the 49ers. And so this move was it was necessary. They needed more guys, and that's why the defensive line was so stagnant, last year and the year prior to that as well, because they simply did not have the versatility, and they didn't have the bodies to be able to do that the last 2 years. But now Bryce Huff, this addition, gives them multiple options, as well as, the defensive line players that they drafted.
Yeah, and this pass rush isn't going to be relying on 4 anymore. And it's going to be relying on stunts and twists, right? And these ideas, right? Like the idea of Michael Williams kicking inside, and let's just imagine in our mind what this NASCAR package is going to be. I think the front runners for it, based on versatility and the way that it goes, Bosa, Yetur, Gross-Matos, Michael, and Huff. And you feel very, very good about those things, because Yetur Gross-Matos isn't just somebody who's going to be inside and just be there to just, hang around. Like, he's actually faster than the guards, and that's the idea. He's able to have that flexibility. But I think what you said was very important, because this whole youth movement, and this is perfect. This is going to be our segue into, the real big thing that I really wanted to talk about on this show. But it's not a redundant skill set. The player that would have gotten in the way of Michael Williams is a Jadeveon Clowney, because Jadeveon Clowney is a base down edge who is a better run defender than he is a pass rusher. College be damned, Jadeveon Clowney isn't somebody who can rush the passer anymore. He is very much a run stuffer, but that gets in the way of Michael Williams. And this move does not get in the way of Michael Williams. If anything, it only furthers his development based on the way that he's going to be able to play. He's going to get advantageous matchups. Everyone's going to be so worried about Bosa and Huff on the other side. Let's face it, the 49ers have been chasing this speed edge opposite Nick Bosa since D Ford. They have been chasing it, and now they feel like they have gotten it. So I think there's going to be multiple ways when you hear John Lynch tell Fred Warner the scheme has evolved. I think in this way is what you're going to see. A lot more stunts, twists. We're going to move guys in, out. Like you're not just going to get, hey, rush 4, because 2019, it was rush 4. It was Buckner, Armstead, Bosa, Ford. The talent level, unfortunately, right now, like, I'm just being objective, that's not the talent level from 2019. That 2019 team, that's an all-star team right there, right? This right here is a little bit more of a development, but when you believe in Robert Saleh, when you believe in Chris Kosuric, when you believe that the fact that the 49ers run defense can't be any worse than it was last year, it's almost physically impossible. And now you can get into those 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 opportunities for Huff to create damage, and he's not going to be in on base downs. All of this fits. I think what you said about complementary roles is absolutely true. It's not filling out the defensive line. It's filling out that role that needed to be filled. And we got a super chat from Slick 68. I hope Huff is more D4 2.0 and not Hargrave 2.0. Let's effing go Niners. I'm trying not to curse as much. I appreciate you, even though we're on a little bit later right now. But again, Javon Hargrave, defensive tackle, pass rush specialist, but from the defensive tackles portion. I wonder if a lot of what his production was with the Eagles was how good their defensive line was and how they were, like that is really in there. But that kind of goes back to the defensive philosophy here with the defensive line, how they've been able to just bring in guys who are good at one thing and good at, or not good at the other, right? Javon Hargrave, good pass rusher, can't stop the run. Same thing with Malik Collins. Jordan Elliott, run stuffer, can't rush the passer. They've got to find ways to unlock CJ West, Alfred Collins, and Michael Williams so they can be versatile and be out there as long as they can. But for now, I would say, Steph, and I'll let you give your prediction. I would say it's going to be Michael, Huff, Yetur Gross Models and Bosa as your NASCAR package on third and long and passing situations.
Yeah, I definitely like that. I could definitely see that. As far as the Hargrave thing, like I think the reason why for Huff, it's a little more than just a projection, what we're expecting him to do here, because we've already seen a pretty large sample size of him under Robert Saleh, right? So it was pretty damn good. So I think it's a good thing to be able to see that, and it's not just making assumptions and hoping on a prayer that he's going to be successful in this scheme, because he's going to have the exact same role that he had in 2023. Injuries, of course, like that could impact anybody. So as long as he's healthy, and he passed his physical today, so assuming that he's good and ready to go, as long as he's healthy, I feel good about that acquisition, and I feel good that it won't be a Hargrave 2.0 for this team. But yeah, I'm excited about this defensive line. Like suddenly it's looking pretty damn strong for this team. And for what we were saying about, the safety group, someone else brought this up in one of my shows. It's like a strong defensive line is going to make your back end look a lot better.
Sure.
So if the 49ers can improve the defensive line, and on paper, they've certainly addressed it, right? That could go a long way to helping the secondary. I'm not worried about the corners really so much. It's really just the safeties. But if the pass rush is going to be there, if the run defense is going to be there, and you can get offenses on those favorable down and distances for your defense, then, I suddenly feel very good about the defense as a whole. Like I've been saying, like, for as bad as the defense was last year, think of that as like the lowest floor you can get. And now you got Robert Saleh. You got so many other improvements that you've made in addressing your biggest weakness in the run defense last year. It has to be better, and it has to be a lot better.
It's hard for it not to be better, right?
Yeah.
The run defense was so, like, again, like I think people get upset when they hear me say that, is that the run defense is improved because it can't be worse. That's a fact. But that doesn't mean that the run defense can't become, one of the better ones in the league, right? And I think that's what you're saying about floor is perfect, right? And the main thing about the draft and the main thing about the 49ers right now is floor. But ceiling is what we're trying to get to, right? We know the run defense is going to be better, but you have to develop Wes Collins and Michael into pass rushers. We know that. And we know that Huff is going to be here and he's going to fill a role. But what's the ceiling? Can we get him for 2 years to be here and be the guy, right? Because he's still under contract. And by the way, the Eagles are paying $9 million of his contract. When you throw all that in there, this is the lowest of risks with the highest of rewards, right? But I do want to ask you this, because that's important to note. The 49ers still have the second most cap space, which they plan to fully roll over next year with the cap increase, and it's usually been their MO. But Steph, I just got a sneaky feeling, man, if the 49ers are in position to make noise, that they're gonna be buyers at the trade deadline this year.
Hey, I said the same thing. Like, and that's kind of part of the reason why they like to have a lot of cap space going into, this portion of the season. And certainly by the time they get into the start of the season, they like to have that option. And if that opportunity doesn't present itself, or you're just like, maybe this team either doesn't need someone, or they're not as good where we want to invest more, then you can feel good about just rolling it over. But it gives you the option, right? And, we've seen this team be aggressive, when they need to be. And I saw someone say it earlier that, like, the Bryce Huff trade kind of tells you the 49ers aren't just laying down and saying, hey, this is just a rebuild year for us. We're just going to go with the flow and see what happens, right? I think they're really looking to be competitive this year. And, you could call this aggressive if you want to. We've been saying it's still a need for the 49ers to have like a situational pass rusher, but I think it does kind of give you that signal that they're not just laying down, and they do want to be competitive, and they have that opportunity. We're looking at the schedule right now, and it's an easy schedule, as we've been saying, right? They have that opportunity to win the NFC West. It's still for the taking. I don't care what anyone says, right? So they can do a quick turnaround. Look at all the examples that John Lynch himself gave for the 49ers way of retooling this team. What was it, Jay? It was the Bills. You mentioned
And
like the
Eagles.
Rams.
No, the
Eagles.
Bills and the Rams.
Okay. So those are teams that got right back into being competitive. Like as soon as they retooled their teams, the 49ers are looking to do the exact same thing. There's no, it's not a coincidence that he mentioned those teams, right? Those aren't teams that retooled and just said, all right, we'll figure it out in a year or two. No, they figured it out right away. And the 49ers feel good about the foundation that they have and the culture that they have to be able to do that again.
Here's my question. And today's June 3rd, but let's have some fun. The NFC, the way I, in my mind, see it playing out, right? And by the way, the Detroit Lions have probably had the offseason of not great vibes, losing Ben Johnson, losing Aaron Glenn, and then having your all-pro stud center leave at 29. These are not good things, right? I think the NFC hierarchy would be the two NFC teams that made the championship game, the Eagles and Washington, right? Then you have that division of the Packers, the Bears, the Lions, and the Vikings. And then there's a world where three of those teams make the playoffs. And then there'll be one team from the NFC South, Falcons, Saints, Panthers, whatever, one of those teams. Do the 49ers have to win their division to make the playoffs this year?
No.
They do, I think.
I don't think they do.
Why not?
Because, I mean, we see this every year where you can have a decent record and still get into the playoffs. I think the lowest prediction I have for the 49ers, my not as optimistic one, I literally have it, but I was like, they can make the playoffs with this. It was 11-6, I believe. That's probably worst case scenario for me. And that's them losing some games uncharacteristically, against some teams that I think they should win, right? So that's enough to slip in as a wild card team, in my opinion. And I get it. Like you mentioned, some competitive divisions that are also going to be in a similar position where they're going to be fighting for wild card spots because their divisions are so deep. But I think the 49ers are in a similar spot. But, I mean, obviously you want to be able to win your division. I think the 49ers can, and I think they will. They should, right?
I think they should, for sure. I just know Washington and Philly are going to make it, right? I think Washington has had low-key. The only other NFC team that had a better offseason than Washington was Chicago. And I know it's the Bears, but just from the outside looking in, when you fix that offensive line and you add Colston Loveland and Luther Burden, don't tell me that the Chicago Bears didn't get better by also adding Ben Johnson. They had the best offseason of any NFC team. Again, offseasons don't mean anything until it's time to play. Washington, Philly, they're in, right? I think Dallas is out. I think the Giants are out. That's fine. Whoever the hell makes it from the NFC South, maybe the Atlanta Falcons, who cares? The Saints stink. The Panthers are trash. It doesn't really matter. That NFC North or whatever division it is, I'm losing it. But in the North, there could be 3 playoff teams from there. And there's going to be a 4th team that's going to be a very good team, I feel, that's going to be on the outside looking in. So if we're doing the math, 3, 5, 6, there's only one spot left. I get very worried that the 49ers have to win this division if they're going to make it, because I don't know if they're going to have a better record than Washington. I don't know if they're going to have a better record than any of those other wildcard teams. It's going to get a little hairy moving forward. And it could be a situation where the North, the Lions don't make the playoffs and the Packers, Vikings, and Bears do. Or the Bears don't make the playoffs and the Packers, Vikings, and Lions do. That division is going to be a bloodbath. And there could possibly be 3 teams that get out of there. If 3 teams get out of there, then now things get really hairy, because I really believe that Washington and Philly are locks to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, Vikings out of that group is maybe the one I'm not as sure of. Yeah, well, not nervous. I think that's the team that I don't see making the playoffs of that group of 4, if I had to guess. But them having to go up against each other is the best case scenario, because
for sure.
they're all really good teams, or they're going to be, and they can kind of help knock each other out for the 49ers. I just can't imagine that a team, especially in the NFC North, having an easier schedule than what the 49ers are going to have. So that's going to be their advantage. That is their ticket to making this happen. Even if they don't win their division, they're going to have the favorable record to be able to make it through, should they not win the division.
And it's just June 3rd. Just throwing out hypotheticals. We haven't seen a down of football yet. Just fun to talk about, because we don't know what's going on. By the way, 49ers are going 20-0 and winning the Super Bowl. Anyway.
Obviously.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, because PFF put out an article talking about the biggest question marks for each team. And their question mark for the 49ers was how much rookies are going to have to play in year 1. Now, we've laid it out and we've talked about it little by little here. The 49ers run defense is not going to be worse than it was last year, because if it is, then there's something really, really, really wrong, because how can it be worse, right? But there is this development on the fly type thing that the 49ers, we really haven't seen, aside from one player, maybe another player. But for all intents and purposes, and let's just say this is how it goes, Wes Collins and Michael will be starting, and you have to suspect that there's going to be some bumps and bruises. And now let's take it a step further. Upton Stout's your slot corner. He's a rookie. Nick Martin beats out D. Winters. He's a rookie. That means you've got 5 guys that are going to potentially be having consistent downs. Obviously, Upton Stout's not going to start off the bat as nickel, right? Because, on base downs, it's not going to be like that. He'll be there in obvious passing downs. But are the 49ers relying a little bit too much on the rookies? And even though I love the thought process and making sure that, these guys get to play as much as they can, because, all we ever bark about is like, why aren't these guys getting more time? But doesn't it feel like so much of the defensive success, even though you still have Bosa and Warner and Demo and Renardo Green, and you feel good about those guys, doesn't it feel like so much of their success is just hinging on these rookies that are going to have bumps and bruises throughout 2025?
I mean, it definitely does. And I think you are expecting that there are going to be some rookie mistakes, especially early on in their careers, right? Where it is probably going to end up hurting the team in some fashion. And that's why I believe we've said it in a past episode, Jay, that this offense is going to have to carry this defense for at least the first half of the year, where they're going to have to put enough points up on the board where it's okay if your defense and your rookies make some mistakes on that side of the ball, because you have the offense that can score points. And Kyle Shanahan, you better be ready to score some points, buddy. So, I think they're okay with that. And then also, I think they feel like they feel comfortable having all these rookies playing, because Robert Saleh can raise the ceiling of this offense just on his own and his coaching, and being able to get these guys up to speed, I think in a quicker manner. I mean, I would trust Robert. I would trust the defensive side of the ball having all these rookies play more so than I would on the offensive side. I'll just put it like that, because I think we've said it before. I don't know if Kyle has the patience for rookies as much. And certainly the patience for like developing them. Like, it almost feels like players got to sink or swim on the offensive side. You better get that playbook ready, and you better know all the plays before, Kyle puts you in the doghouse. But on the defensive side, even last year we saw a lot of rookies playing, and, we saw some of those guys improve with each game. Yes, there were a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of mistakes for the whole defense. But I think early on, there's going to be some mistakes, but it will hurt the team sometimes. But eventually, they're going to figure it out. And look, we've seen the Rams deal with this as well. We've seen the Eagles play a lot of rookies as well last year, and the year before that for the Rams. Those guys figured it out. So you got to put trust in these guys. There's a reason that you brought them in. They're dogs. Put them in those positions that they can figure out the quickest. And in the background, get them developing on the things they don't quite have right yet. And that's what's so great, I think, about the rotation that the 49ers are going to have, because you're not going to be relying on these guys on every single down. And that's just on the defensive line, right? And, your example of Upton Stout is actually another great one, because he's not going to be out there for every single down. So I think where they do have the rookies, it's okay, because they're not going to be – my expectation is that they won't be playing every down. So they'll have that opportunity to kind of learn and grow as they go.
Well, and Charlene says, and shout out to her channel member, if we have that many rookies starting, doesn't that mean the 49ers killed it in the draft? Yes and no. Yes, because, you feel confident in those guys starting. No, because somebody's got to play, and it would have to be them, right? Like, so it's yes and no. But I want to reiterate that and say, with this point, if Kyle Shanahan is the offensive coach that we believe he is, or the head coach that we believe he is, if Robert Saleh is the defensive coordinator that the 49ers and all of us believe he is, if Chris Kosurik's the defensive line genius that everybody says he is, then yes, there's going to be bumps and bruises, but ultimately they're going to be put in positions to win. And the one thing the 49ers, for a few years now, we really don't have to worry about is coverage now, right? We feel very good about Diarmado Lenore and Renardo Green outside, right? Like, imagine a world where you have really two good corners. And this was my kind of like vision for them drafting Will Johnson before we found out all about the knee stuff. Is like, pass rush helps secondary, but secondary helps pass rush. And last year, the 49ers got sacks because of the secondary, not because of their pass rush, right? So it's all complementary. But if you believe that these coaches are who they are and what they can bring and the positions that they're going to put these players in to be, then you have to ride it out. And looking at the Rams, right? You bring in Jared Verse, you bring in Braden Fisk. Okay, you're gonna roll with it, and you're gonna go, and you're gonna let them play and learn on the fly, and that can go one of two ways. If they're not mentally strong, then their confidence shoots to the basement because of how poorly they're playing, or the confidence of knowing my coach and my coaching staff has me out there every single play, and they're allowing me to go through it, and they believe in me, can be lifting. So I do think that, clearly the 49ers are going to be relying on their rookies, and I think we're all excited about that. But if we believe what we believe about this coaching staff in full from top bottom, then we have to listen to their plan, and we have to at least believe that these coaches are going to put them in position to succeed. Now, the offense, this is your time. Last year, moving the football wasn't the issue for the 49ers. It was finishing, right? So what does that look like in the red zone now? Is this back to, McCaffrey just scoring all the touchdowns? Are we going to feature George Kittle a little bit more? Do we have different things that we can go to? I think we all love Jordan Mason. He just wasn't a finisher in the red zone. He just wasn't. That's just a fact. That's not my opinion. He just wasn't finishing in the red zone. He just wasn't. So offsetting all of those things, having longer drives, keeping that defense off the field, keeping them fresh, all of this stuff is complementary when it comes to that. But I expect the offense to really, really do the heavy lifting this season based on who the coach is, based on the talent that you have, regardless of whenever it is that Brandon Aiyuk comes back, Steph.
Yeah, and I wanted to go to this comment that Benali posted, talking about the Rams. Like, they started 1-4 last season. People have to be okay with the possibility of things looking spooky in September.
The Niners can't start off 1-4. We're going to kill each other.
They're not going to, right?
I don't think they are either.
They're not going to, but I think we are going to see some losses or even some close calls because of the defense and possibly because of these rookies early on in the season. Like, we kind of got to be comfortable with that, right? So, but it's okay. Like it doesn't mean that these players aren't going to figure it out. And again, like kind of what you're saying, Jay, if Robert Saleh is the guy that we think he is, and I think there's a reason that they held on to trying to get him this offseason so badly is because they believe he is. I think he's going to be able to get this defense back on track. It's not going to look all polished in week one, even with all the foundational guys that they have, right? You got Bosa still, you got Lenore. We're talking about the guy, Warner, guys we're not worried about, but those guys were on the team last year too, so they could only do so much on their own. You need all these other guys to get up to speed, but they will eventually. I'm not too worried about it. And I think, with the schedule being as quote unquote easy as it is, that's going to be an even better opportunity, I think, for these rookies to really get going. Because imagine if it was like a really tough schedule and it would just be a way bigger learning curve for them. So there's a soft landing spot for them with this schedule, and I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, and look, to kind of put a bow on this, right? This is just us throwing out something about, the rookies and is it too much? But the run defense is going to improve. You have a situational pass rusher who is going to help this team get off the field on third downs, which is something they sorely missed last year. It's hard to not look at this defense and say they're going to improve, but there are going to be those lapses and those times in games where, you just say, hey, look, you gotta be patient with the rook and everything as well too. Look, if every rookie that was blessed with talent hit the scene and was an automatic, hit the ground running guy, we wouldn't even be having discussion. But it really right now just feels like the 49ers they've had a plan. John Lynch told us earlier on what it was. Literally the offseason went from who the hell is going to play on this defensive line to now we know what this defensive line is going to look like. And absolutely, the 49ers have a plan. They executed it. And now the little pieces are starting to fall into places. Bryce Huff is that rotational piece that you need. And you know what? We're going to find out if the 49ers feel like they need to address safety based on how these injuries are going. We just don't know yet. Based on how long Malik Mustafa is going to be out, and the same thing with Jair Brown and who they feel confident in. I feel like Pinnock and Richie Grant are fine depth, and I feel like Richie Grant's more of a special teams guy more than anything, but you won't feel good if those are the guys going out there. So I wonder if that's the case. The 49ers have a lot of cap space to move around and do whatever they want. Probably wouldn't cost a lot to bring in Julian Blackmon. I still struggle. I always want to say Justin Blackmon, but Julian Blackmon is his name. Justin Blackmon was the guy who played for the Jaguars. But Julian Blackmon could be somebody that they bring in. Obviously, there's another one, Chuck Clark, I think. And if we're going off of former New York Jets, CJ Mosley, right? Like, the 49ers are turning into the San Francisco Jets. We can make that into a joke, right? Like, absolutely. So we might as well just start connecting any former Jet that has ever played with Robert Saleh or been in an elevator with him to the team. So, look, I see the plan. I see the vision. Plans are best laid by, mice and men, and we'll see how the results go. We can't judge this plan until we start to see the product on the field. You can still see the vision and still say, hey, I just got to see a little bit more. And I think that's where you and I are at with this one.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, and then we'll wrap it up on that point, I guess, is special teams too. Maybe we'll have to carry.
Oh, wait.
I don't want to say carry because special teams ain't carrying anything in any team, but you know what I mean? Like they're at the very least going to be a little bit better. Like they have to be too, right? So I think, I think the special teams on paper has made a lot of improvements, and that could help the defense too, because then you're not in a situation where your kicker is missing kicks and the punter is putting you in good field position. All these things matter, right? All these things do matter in the grand scheme of things. So at least that's what we're hoping, that the kicker's not going to miss any kicks, right, Jay?
Quick thoughts on the Pat O'Donnell erasure and why he was skipped over for someone who played with the Jets.
True. That's a good point. I forgot he played with the Jets.
You got Pat O'Donnell off the street and he cleared what Mitch Wishnowsky was doing. Cleared it.
They should.
And look, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to dance on Mitch's grave because he's clearly not here because he's injured, right? And that's nothing to joke about, right? Like I can hate the draft pick all I want. I'm never gonna take a shot at him like that, like while he's down or whatever. But Pat O'Donnell was more than fine last year, but I guess that Jets connection is too hard to ignore. Look at us talking punters and kickers.
We can't do the Aussie, oi, oi, oi anymore.
Don't care.
Sad.
No, sorry. But there is going to be a kicker competition. The problem is that nobody's going to get to see it from training camp because the 49ers are literally going to put the practice field 3 miles away from where the fans are going to watch. So we'll never know who's actually winning these things. That'll do it for this episode of the Bully Bowl podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Make sure you guys like this video as well. Subscribe to the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcast. Make sure you follow Steph on Twitter at Steph49K. Follow me on Twitter at JasonAponte2103. We both have YouTube channels. Maybe you want to check out some of the content on there. Drop a like on there as well too. A lot of good stuff going on there as well. Great episode today, Steph. Always good to see you. Don't ever leave me with Rob again. And as always, peace.
Peace.